Hi, good afternoon. Welcome and thank you for coming to today's webinar, where we'll be talking about new age retirement and how we might want to start thinking a little differently about retirement in our new post-COVID world. I'm Lisette Smith. I'm a senior advisor in our personal wealth group.
And I'm Margaret Hiller. I'm a senior advisor serving both our personal wealth clients and institutional clients.
Our webinar today will be about 30 minutes. Please put any questions you might have along the way into the chat box. If we don't cover them during the presentation, we'll answer them at the end. So just to cover our agenda today, we're going to talk about how we might want to start looking at retirement differently in light of the changes brought on by COVID and how we're thinking about work-life balance and flexibility we have a little bit differently. So first, we're going to talk about the anxiety that some people might start to feel, especially in midlife, as they think about retiring and maybe retiring early. Then we want to look at the broader influences that affect retirement planning, and including longevity and wellness late into life that we're trying to take into account now as we do our planning. We'll talk a little bit about the evolution of retirement from what it was in previous generations, and then focus on early retirement and what a new age retirement might look like and how that might be different from what we think of as a traditional retirement. So first, we want to talk about the desire to retire and the factors that affect that. We start to see people in midlife, especially, and kind of be immersed in what we call peak busyness, basically busy at work during your peak earning years, often busy at home with kids preparing to launch, and maybe even caring for aging parents. And try to keep a healthy-ish lifestyle, at least for yourself, and keep your retirement savings and lifestyle on track. So it seems like there's a lot coming at people at this time, and we have a lot of clients in this phase of life. And you're handling it, but you might start to be overwhelmed, and that's when people start to think that the answer might be early retirement. I should probably say don't adjust your screen here. We're just depicting the blur of time at this stage, so those photos are a little blurred. In our financial planning practice, we often see clients in this sandwich generation facing those pressures, and it's something that we really are focused on trying to find solutions to. So it's really a difficult time for people, and there's a lot of research that bears out how difficult it can be. Probably the most well-cited research on this is this chart that measures happiness at different stages of life. It's referred to as the U-bend of life chart. And the original study was published in 2010, but it's been tested many times and found to be a pretty resilient research in both men and women, although men are found to be generally happier. But what this is showing is, so along the x-axis is age in decades, so starting at age 20 through age 80. And on the y-axis is a ranking of happiness of those people. And what the research has found, and as you can see here, is the nadir of happiness is around age 47, even though that tends to be when financial security is building. But there's, the pressures of work and family life are pretty intense, as I mentioned. Generally, things start to improve once you're in your 50s, and there's more study being done on this, and there's a few theories as to why. But it may be just that people become more realistic in their expectations and are happier, and that tends to improve even into your 80s. especially among healthier people, which is what you would expect. Seeing this study originally actually really resonated with us as advisors and people in middle age ourselves, both in terms of how to relieve that pressure during these kind of lower happiness middle years, and also to realize that aging might not be as grim as we anticipated, and there's still a lot of vibrancy and ability to maintain wellness and possibly work and stay engaged longer.
So now we're going to turn to some of the macro influences that are affecting how we think about work and retirement. This map here shows the breakdown of longevity by US county. As you can see, there's a lot of dark green in certain parts of the country, particularly those with higher levels of education and better access to healthcare and higher income levels. So this is a good visual reminder that most people really should be planning for life expectancy into their 90s. And in fact, it may even be longer than that. There's a 50% chance that one person in a couple that's age 65 will live beyond the age of 90. And there's a 10% chance that healthy women, this is self-proclaimed healthy women, and 5% of healthy men will live to be over 100. So living longer affects key retirement decisions, including when to retire, how long to be, how many years you want to be retired, how to make the most of your time in retirement, how you should invest, when you should claim Social Security, and whether you might need to plan for long-term care. And people should keep in mind also that with continued medical advances, family history is not necessarily your destiny, so you may live longer than you think. The advent of the COVID pandemic has changed people's perception of what it means to have a healthy work-life balance. So first, we experienced the Great Resignation. So this was when a record number of people across industries quit their jobs voluntarily. And at the same time, the flexible work situation became more commonplace. Employers have had to become more open to the idea of hybrid or fully remote work models. There's no longer a geographical constraint when employers are looking to either hire talent or retain talent. And so this whole new normal has opened up possibilities for more flexible options in late career. Workers can dial down at their own pace, stay engaged longer, though perhaps at a slower pace, and continue to work on some level on their own terms. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the evolution of the retirement model. The traditional model was very binary. So this was where you were either working and saving or you were retired and spending. So you had your big retirement party and you went home from the office and you never came back. In this traditional model, workers worked a full career and then retired and turned to something different. So they would tend to give back in some way, whether that meant volunteering through a local nonprofit or whether it was helping out with grandchildren. So there were three very distinct phases. First was the learning phase. This was through college and through some form of graduate school potentially. Then a long period of working and earning and saving. And then a period of retirement, which included giving back in some way. The new age retirement looks different. So you all heard the news recently that the amazing tennis champion Serena Williams recently announced her retirement from tennis. But she made a point to say that she does not like the word retirement because it does not feel like a modern word. She said that she prefers to use the term evolution. So she described herself as evolving away from tennis toward other things that are important to her. So we now have people who are living longer and healthier lives, and we have employers who are out of necessity due to the pandemic, have learned how to operate with a remote workforce. So this leads us to the possibility of a new age retirement that is more of an evolution rather than the old binary model of being either working or retired. So with this new age model, the career trajectory looks a bit different. Instead of abruptly ending a career, let's say at age 65, the new age model looks something like this, with a gradual phase down that might begin in the 50s and might continue into the late 70s. So soon after the worker gets past that period of peak busyness, he or she can begin to reduce time spent at work and increase time spent doing other activities that are gratifying. So whether that takes the form of philanthropy or spending more time with family or enjoying a hobby. This means reducing income and likely reducing one's savings rate. So while one works more years in total, the later career years are on your own terms and at your own pace.
And one of the things that led us to want to explore the idea of a different model was that when you're only working with the traditional model, people tend to focus on early retirement as, you know, a way to gain that sense of freedom and more enjoyment in their lives. But often when we've tested that, it's really not a realistic goal for many people, and maybe even not one that should be strived for. So let's look a little bit about what early retirement can look like. The first thing that's important to think about as we think about early retirement is whether it's really something that would make people happier. And we see in our own practice that often people want to plan for the ability to retire early, but then when it actually comes to doing it, they'll put it off and keep working. And there could be several reasons for that, but the government has done a lot of studies about how people work and retire. One of them was this 2016 study from the Federal Reserve. And what's noticeable here is that they focused specifically on people in early retirement and found that about 30% of them went back to work after an early retirement. And it really didn't matter. It was true among all asset levels and education. So it wasn't just among the well-educated or people that had more options. About almost 70%, 68% said that they would continue to work even if they didn't need the income. So maybe importantly for what we're looking at today, people return to the workforce, do it in a way that where they don't feel the same stress level that they did before, but can still get satisfaction out of providing or out of having meaningful work. One of the things that we've seen in practice is that continuing to work and having that income can really make a big difference in just having a successful financial retirement. And that's what I want to focus on here. To show how we test different retirement scenarios and looking at a hypothetical scenario and showing the impact of working a little bit more, as Margaret was outlining. So if we first look at a traditional retirement model, and so this is a case with a couple that are in midlife, say their ages 45 and 47, and they're targeting retirement at 67. So if we're targeting a traditional retirement, which would be their full retirement age for Social Security, for example, and they have 2 kids, kind of pre-college, they do have a lot of savings. They have over $2 million in their tax deferred and taxable accounts, as well as money in 529 plans to cover upcoming college expenses. In this scenario, we're assuming they spend about $225,000 a year, and that's what they're targeting to maintain when they retire. And that they're able to save right now. They max out their 401ks and they are able to save about $75,000 after tax. So if we look at at that spending, and they're invested. They have they're in their portfolio, they have 70% in equities and 30% fixed income allocation. So if given that scenario, these people are really on target to meet the traditional retirement date. What we do to get these probabilities, the software we have runs through 1,000 scenarios of different market conditions and timing, and kind of looks for a range between 70 and 90% to say that people are on track. So a score of 92 means this should be a really resilient plan, which it is, but it is not resilient enough if they are to retire early. So in an early retirement, so if we adjust this by 10 years, so then targeting 57 instead of 67, this planning can't stand up to that plan. It's significant, there's significant negative impacts, which you would kind of see because they're giving up those 10 additional years of savings and replacing them with 10 additional years of spending. And it's too significant to make this achievable without having changes in the assumptions of saving or spending. So that is really not something that would be a successful plan. But when we look at the new age model and to show that an impact of early retirement, but with some continued work, it does help things significantly. So here, we're still considering retirement at age 57, but some ongoing work where this couple makes about $150,000 a year, so maybe they each make about $75,000 in some work. They're no longer able to save, but the offset of their earnings means they don't have to draw as much from their savings to meet the spending needs. And when we look at how much of a difference it makes, it's significant. So what we see is it changes from not being something that they could achieve to being something within the success range. And Margaret's going to talk about this more in a minute, even though if you're not able to continue saving, which is what we've incorporated here, it is still a way to maybe get that sense of freedom, but also maintain a meaningful experience and engagement later in life, where people in retirement find that gives them more satisfaction. So it kind of works on both the financial and kind of experience level of retirement.
There are some important considerations to keep in mind if you are contemplating this approach. One is that there will likely be additional medical insurance costs. So currently, your employer may cover some or all of your medical insurance premiums for full-time workers, but may not cover those costs for a part-time employee, for example. Another is that out-of-pocket healthcare costs may increase if one is no longer on a premium plan that's offered through an employer, and instead that individual has to go and purchase their own individual policy through the exchange. A third is the consideration of the potential loss of employer matching contributions into a 401k plan. So generally, part-time employees will be allowed to continue making deferrals into the plan if they have enough income to do that and cover their living expenses. But they may lose or have a reduced employer match due to reduction in earnings. This reduced income may also result in loss of opportunity to save because in our example here, most or all of the paycheck is needed to fund living expenses. It should also be noted that this plan assumes that one has access to some after-tax savings that are not coming out of the retirement plan because people may be interested in moving to this reduced work schedule before age 59 and a half. And as you know, with a retirement plan, if you start drawing on your pre-tax accounts before age 59 and a half, you'll be subject to a penalty for early withdrawal. And of course, it's important to keep in mind that your future Social Security benefit may be affected if you have a number of years with reduced earnings. Social Security is based on your AIME, which stands for your average indexed monthly earnings. This takes into account your highest 35 years of earnings. So if you reduce your earnings for a number of years, your AIME may be affected, which would in turn affect your Social Security benefit. But there are a number of benefits to this new model of retirement. There is a better chance, as we saw in Lisette's charts, there's a better chance that your money will last through the remainder of your lifetime, and perhaps that you'll have money to leave to your heirs or leave a legacy. You would be able to spend more time at an earlier age doing things that you enjoy. So whether that's traveling or socializing or spending time with family or enjoying your hobbies or volunteering. You are able to focus more attention on maintaining an active and healthy lifestyle. When you're not working as much, you can be exercising and enjoying more time outdoors. And if you're feeling financially secure, and if you're feeling a sense of purpose in your life, and you have joy in what you're doing, and you have your health, it's likely that you'll feel an increased sense of gratitude in your life, which is always a good thing. So Lisette and I want to thank you for joining us today. We encourage you to contact us if we can be of any assistance with regard to your financial planning. Whether you are envisioning a traditional retirement model with the binary either working or not working, or if you are interested in the idea of a new age retirement model that has you phasing out of the workforce over a period of time, we can work with you to help you devise a plan to achieve your goals. So with that, we appreciate you taking the time to join us. We hope you'll join us for a future webinar. And I don't see any questions in the chat, but if anything pops up, we will be sure to be in touch. So thank you very much.